welcome to this week's Fireside, well, I guess maybe Lakeside chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Katie Baker, president of MC2 Finance. Thanks for joining me, Katie.
Thank you very much, Jesse, for having me with you today. And gosh, I really wish I was where you are right now. It's much better. I'm in Kentucky. So it's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, this is a much, I guess, welcome change from the desert. It is a little chilly, I guess I should say, but woe is me, I suppose, because it's like 100 now. I'm in Watkins Glen, New York, where I grew up. So this is Seneca Lake behind me here. It's beautiful, one of the largest freshwater bodies in the world. But I don't get up here very often, and I'm happy when I'm up here if I get the chance to kind of show off some of the natural beauty of this location and speak with professionals like yourself.
Well, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, Katie, for those people who haven't been fortunate to meet you in person, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and career to date in equipment finance?
Sure. Thank you. So I have been in the equipment finance industry since about 2012. And I started my business, MC2 Finance, in 2015 on June 10th, my birthday. But I started in the equipment finance industry working as a finance manager for Aero Truck Sales, which is owned by Volvo. And if it's okay, I'll share the story of how I got into this.
Sure. And I think when this comes out, it'll be just 2 days after your birthday. So I guess happy soon to be and belated birthday at the same time.
Thank you. I'm holding on to my age as long as I can, Jesse. So anyway, I got into the industry because my background actually is in French. I have two majors. One was in French and one was in telecommunications and IT, right? So I worked most of my career in the IT field, and then I did a little stint in healthcare for a little while. But IT was my love, and that was where I spent the majority of my time. And the company that I was working for, the division that I was a manager of, the director of, they decided to merge that division in with another, and they wanted me to report to someone else. And I didn't really care for that particular division of the house and didn't want to continue. So I went to the president of the company and politely explained that I really didn't want to go into that other role. But he and I had a great relationship. So he was ever so kind. I will always, always be grateful to him for this. He's a friend of mine for life. He gave me a 6-month severance, which was completely not even necessary, right? It was just out of the goodness of his heart, because I was the one that chose, I had a position. I was the one that chose I didn't want it. And he still offered me a severance, which was super nice. I could have sat around and watched television like a lot of people do, especially did during COVID, or if they lose their job. But I've never been of that mindset. I've always been one of those go-getters, hard workers. And I'm like, I'm going to double dip. I'm going to take advantage of this. So since I was being paid to go ahead and work for, or to get the severance from him, I decided to find out what other job I could find. My intention was literally just to find some sort of source of income, just to kind of stash away for a rainy day and those types of things. Sure. And I reached out on Facebook and said, is anyone hiring? I'm looking for a job. This gentleman that had been trying to date me for quite some time, because I'm a single mom, and I was, my entire life I was single. Got divorced when my son was only 3 years old. So dating was fun, let's just say. And
no,
I'm being sarcastic. It was terrible, but anyway, being very sarcastic. It was very hard.
Catfishing is real. Just saying.
Oh, I know.
Just saying. It's like, how old is this photo? How old is this photo?
Come on. Exactly. I got some story. That's a whole other fireside chat with Jesse right there. Dating in today's day and age as an adult. So this gentleman on Match.com was trying to get this date with me for a while, and I kept dodging him, and I'm like, no. And then he said, no, my company, Aero Truck Sales, is hiring a finance manager. Come on. And I said, I'm not qualified for that. I haven't had a math class since my freshman year in college. And I said, they're not going to buy this. And he goes, yes, they will. Yes, they will. So come on up. I'll treat you to lunch. I'm like, I was not interested in this
I
guy.
see what you did there.
I knew what he was doing. So I was like, all right, I'll go up there. I'll be in a professional environment, get a free lunch, talk to the guy, whatever. Got up there. He was right. There was an interview set up for me, and they interviewed me and they hired me. And I was actually kind of surprised, to be honest with you. I'm like, why did you hire someone that doesn't have finance experience to be in finance? And his answer was intriguing. He says, I'm looking for a different kind of finance manager. I'm like, what's that mean? And he could be taken a lot of ways. And he said, well, I'm looking for somebody that has experience in sales, and you have a lot of experience in sales, because when you're doing a transaction with a client, you're actually selling that client those terms, that rate.
Sure.
And then we have additional products, like they had extended warranties, they had debt waivers, they had insurance projects, insurance products. They had GAP, they had all kinds of various different things to sell. And he says a lot of finance managers don't feel comfortable selling. They just go ahead and they're a numbers person. We want someone that can really finesse the client and kind of help us out in that aspect. I was okay. Well, that makes sense. And he says, I can teach someone numbers. I can't teach someone personality and how to sell. And I said, fair enough.
Perfect.
So
Nail on the head.
Is what started my career. So I went from being out in the field quite a bit in IT to being behind a desk with a highlighter. It was real fun. Highlighting every mistake that someone would have made when they're signing a contract, making sure where they're supposed to sign, making sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed, doing title work for all of the stuff, which was not fun. Handling calls. It was definitely a different scene for me. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And what I enjoyed the most were two things. A, helping people, because most of the people that I got financed were so grateful just for the opportunity to be financed and have that equipment that they were using to make money for their family. And oftentimes they would even come in with their whole family there and sit across the desk from me. And I could see how the happiness in their eyes when they got approved and they're getting this loan and this is a start for them, and a new start. And my other part of it was the relationships that I got to build with my lenders. And I like building relationships. It's one of my favorite things is just people. And Shervin Roshdi, who is the president and CEO of Slim Capital, is kind of the one that took me from where I was sitting there that day at Arrow to that next level. So I had a lot of great relationships with a lot of my lenders that I still actually maintain today. But on top of that, I've added many more. And Shervin and I had a funny relationship. We got along real well. I was very honest and blunt, like, look, Shervin, I need this to close it. I need you to work with me on this. And we became buddies over the phone because I'd never met him in person at this time. And just a little backstory. I had a thing for goats, and let me explain what I mean for a thing for goats. I don't do anything weird with goats. I just think they're funny. Just to put that out there, disclaimer, okay?
I appreciate the quick disclaimer.
Gotta have that disclaimer out there. But so no, so as far as goats are concerned, I find them funny. One of my exes, he was very confrontational, let's just say that. It kind of caused me a lot of strife. And so I just didn't know how to handle it. One day I just said, you know what? I'm sick and tired of arguing with this guy. So instead of getting back and forth into a bicker with him, I just sent him a picture of a goat. There's no meaning behind it. I just pulled it out of nowhere and sent it to him. Well, it sent him into a rage. He was upset. And I was like, why is this guy upset about goats? Who can get mad at a goat? Like, I mean, who are you? So that made me laugh. So I was like,
maybe he thought you were saying he looks like a goat.
I think
then he got offended.
Thinking is that something like that, or maybe
that was probably how I would take it. I'm like, is that me? You think I'm a goat? Yeah. Like, really? Like, come on.
Exactly, right. And the funniest thing was there was literally no meaning at all. So I found another goat, and then I sent him another goat. And then before you know it, he stopped all of the confrontation and everything was great. And we had a good relationship after that. So it was pretty funny. So that's kind of how it started. So then at Arrow every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, I had told some of my coworkers that I did this and they thought it was also funny. So they said, when you're sending goats, send us goats. So I started sending my coworkers goats on my drive to work in the morning at 7 o'clock every morning. And every day they said it had to be a different goat. So I had to get a little creative with my goats. Some wore sunglasses, whatever. And I was also sending them to Shervin Roshti. Well, I work in the East Coast time zone. Shervin works in California in the West Coast time zone. And Shervin's wife, Sarah, was awoken by a goat one morning and wasn't so happy. So when Shervin got into the office, he said, Katie, I love your goats. My wife, not so much, especially when they wake her up at 4 a.m. If you could possibly, if you're going to send the goats, can you wait until your time? So at this point, Shervin and I had a real bonding going on here. We go way back.
Sure.
So Shervin and I talked about me representing them exclusively as a broker to broker out their business on the East Coast part of the country and the Midwest as well and Southeast. So I started up in the East Coast was my primary target in the beginning, and then it's kind of spread from there. I flew out to Los Angeles, met Shervin and his beautiful wife, met the owner of Maxim Commercial Capital, Bezod, and fell in love with them even more and decided I was going to go ahead and start my own business on June 10th in 2015. So it was a big leap of faith. I am not a risk taker. I am always afraid, one of those scaredy cats. So if I'm going to make a risk, it's going to be a very calculated risk. I put a lot of thought and homework into this decision. And I did have about panic attacks for about 6 months because I was still scared,
Sure.
Because no one was helping me. I mean, I had no one really leading my hand beside Shervin saying, you can do this. I believe in you. And that was basically what I had. So I started off doing that and did that for 5 years. I went across the country. I went in to meet dealerships and vendors that would send in leads. And I went on foot with my high heels and my skirt, walking into these places. And I had my Apple Watch that I religiously wore because I would have to send my last known location. Exactly. I would have to send my last known location before I would go into some of these places because some of them are a little rough, and in remote areas, and I may not have been seen again. So I wanted to at least send the police the right direction. So I did that. I also took my son Grant along with me. As a single mom, I just have one son. He is now, he'll be 23 in July. He graduated from Notre Dame, the University of Notre Dame, and he is now working for Campbell. Thank you.
Nice.
Biggest accomplishment is him. And so now he's in Arkansas right now for about another year or two, doing his time, and then he'll come back to Cincinnati to Procter & Gamble's headquarters. But I drug my son along with me to all these places and vendors, and it taught me a lot. I built even more relationships, but it also kind of taught me who you want to do business with, who you don't want to do business with. And I think that really helped lenders say, okay, she's not your typical broker. This girl knows what she's dealing with. And when I was working with Maxim, I also learned all aspects of this. So being an exclusive broker for them allowed me to see not only how the entire process works from how do you get the lead in the door, then once you get the lead, turn that into an actual closing, a financial closing, then to all the paperwork that's going on, then to all the funding requirements. And then after the sale, what happens? So we would sit down, we would have meetings, and they would talk about, okay, these particular vendors have this many repos, and I would want to know why. Like, well, what's the reason for these repos? What's the reason for the default? And so we would dig into all that, and it taught me a ton. And you could see trends with certain vendors versus others, and also trends across the United States, like certain regions had higher default ratios than others. So it was super educational for me. So then at that point, they offered me a job, which was super nice, and I was very appreciative of that. But at that point in time, this was right 2 weeks before the pandemic. So I didn't know what was about to hit, and decided against taking direct employment for Maxim, and decided to go ahead to continue to represent Maxim. But at this point, I wanted to spread my wings and fly, and go represent some more brokers or lenders. So now I represent, gosh, 30 or 40 lenders across the United States. And thank you. So that's kind of where I am right now. And I specialize, obviously I started in trucking. That's kind of how I got my start. So I specialize in things that are titled, because I work with trucking, but I also work with vocational equipment, dump trucks, tow trucks, bucket trucks, work trucks, vans, box trucks, trailers, what else? Agricultural equipment is a big one we're working on right now. So we're working on all different types of things that are in that niche area, because I really
Sure.
feel like you have to have a niche to be successful.
A little more sticky there. It's business essential. It's
Yeah.
more specialized for sure. So,
I want people to think of me when they think of, okay, I need this type of equipment financed. Who do I go to? I want to be at the top of, their head,
Sure. Sure.
So that's the reason why I've decided to say that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not able to finance other things, because I am. I financed a sports bar last week. I'm currently in the process also of financing several different pieces of real estate, commercial real estate. I'm what else am I working?
We should circle back to the sports bar. So how does like how does that work? Do you get discounts? Like,
Ah!
is there a trade relationship,
I
or
get
is
free
it?
work. He said top shelf.
That's fantastic.
Top
That's
shelf.
awesome. That's fantastic. Okay, I was just you said
Yeah,
sports bar. I'm like, okay,
right? Exactly.
okay.
Yeah, I get free bourbon there. I definitely made sure that was part of this whole arrangement here.
Sure.
And I like bourbon. I'm from Kentucky, so obviously, I'm pretty picky on what kind of bourbon that I like.
What's
And
your go-to bourbon? I mean, I'm sure you have a go-to, and then you have like, okay, on occasions.
right. So my used to go to, before it became so cliche, was Blanton's, and it kind of irritated me because it used to be everywhere for $45 a bottle, and it was my favorite. And now it's become allocated by Buffalo Trace, so it's ridiculous the prices that they want for these things. But that was my go-to up until around 2018-ish, when they started that allocation thing. Now I like Angel's Envy Rye. I like ryes.
Yeah.
It's really, really rich, and I'll drink it neat with no ice, just straight, and it's just fantastic.
See, I'm a baby. I like the slow melt. I know it dilutes it a little bit, but I love Angels. That's fantastic. And then
Why the
my
rye?
special, well, yeah, the rye, and then the special for me is Blanton's, because it's so much a bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Is there any other bourbons you like?
I mean, I fly United all the time. They have Buffalo Trace. It's not bad. I was spoiled. Not last year. The guy from God, who took over Buffalo Trace? The bourbon they mentioned. I mean, maybe it was the so it was the main distiller, the master distiller for Buffalo Trace or whatever that. They're in your backyard there, because they mentioned why they named.
No?
Yeah, so it was like Sazerac. They had Eagle Rare. They had all those special
Sazerac is a company
bourbons.
as well. I believe, I could be wrong. Now I'm embarrassing myself if someone fact checks me.
It's fine. Come on, if someone's that petty watching this, go away. Go away.
In my state, they are.
Oh, let her mind. You can kick her across the river to Ohio for temporarily.
Over to Ohio.
But then he was talking about like that's how they got the name Buffalo Trace and everything, was because of the river. And he went through this whole thing, and then there was like a food pairing with different bourbons. And some of that stuff is like liquid gold that you just sip it and you're just like, that's nice.
Have you ever
That's
had
nice.
Pappy?
I have. It was I want to say it was the 15 or maybe the 20, but
You
it's
like
just,
it?
yeah, it was delicious. I mean, that right there, I would not dilute
No.
whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, you just taste it and you're just like, ooh.
I I've had Pappy once, and I got it at a sports bar, the one like I just financed, and
Oh,
I actually gave it away. I had one. I didn't like it.
what?
I had one sip of it, and I said, "Anybody want this? It's Pappy." It was like $25 for the shot, and I gave it away to somebody else in the bar.
It's pretty cheap for a shot, so that's probably why you didn't like it. The
Yeah,
one I
this is
had
not.
was like what I had was like
Oh,
$100. Luckily, I knew the guy, and he saved me some. So it was like, okay.
that's
Apparently,
not.
someone bought a bottle and they didn't like it, and I'm like, all right, your loss is my gain. Thank
Oh,
you.
for sure. Sure. I made my husband, I made his wedding ring. So I got married in pandemic during all of this when I, decided to branch out and work with more lenders and things like that. I also decided to elope in Copenhagen, Denmark.
Oh,
And my husband asked for a wedding ring. Obviously they all do. And I wanted to be creative. So I decided to make one out of a barrel, a bourbon barrel. I was thinking Maker's Mark, Woodford Reserve, something like that. What was there was another one that I was going to make for him as well, but I can't think of it at the top of my head. And the night before, we're out with some friends, and he tells everybody, I really wish she could get me a Pappy ring. Really? And talk about putting pressure on me. The night before, I'm planning a Maker's Mark visit. We were doing a distillery tour. He wants a Pappy ring.
geez.
So I called everybody at Buffalo Trace. I called everybody that I knew. I have all these different bourbon associations that I'm involved in. No one could get me any wood from a Pappy stave, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I finally called the Pappy family and explained to them what was going on. I said, this is a wedding ring, right? This is a surprise. And I can't, it'll break my heart if I can't just make him happy. And this is what he asked me for. And unfortunately, it's last minute. And she goes, we don't give those away. We don't sell those. We don't do that. And I said, I understand. Do you know any suggestion where I can get some Pappy wood? She goes, if you can get to Louisville, Kentucky tomorrow between 10 and 12, I'll give you a stave. But you cannot go telling other people this. So yeah,
Sure.
on YouTube. So I took that stave. I still have this stave, and I took a little piece of it to an artisan in Louisville and had a gold Pappy ring made out of it, and it's beautiful. But I saved the rest of the stave in case he gains or loses weight. We could always have another one made. So that's my story.
You're a rock star. I would have went outside, chipped a piece of bark off a tree, and been like, "There you go, pee, pee." There you go.
I could have told him it was Pappy. He wouldn't have known.
It's fantastic. So Kay, I want to dive into you kind of going out on your own, starting MC Squared, and pros, cons. Before we were recording, it's kind of one of those things where I was telling you, it's like I went on my own about 18 months ago. You get tired of making other people money. It's nerve wracking. Like, I mean, there's anxiety because at the end of the day, it falls on your shoulders to bring
Yeah.
in the business, and I don't think I've ever worked so hard as I have now, because there's a direct correlation with that extra phone call or that extra meeting or that extra trip. While it takes a toll on your body, that's going to lead to eventual business.
Yes, that you hit the nail on the head, and I'm glad you said that. You made me feel a little better, because oftentimes I'm talking to people and I don't know why. I see a reason, to talk to someone, but I'm not sure how they're going to fit into my business plan or what's going to happen. And it's like I'm collecting things, if that makes sense. And then before you know it, it starts to make sense how this relates to this, and then all of a sudden you put two and two together, and you're able to actually grow your business. But when the conversations originally start, you have no clue if this is just someone you're talking to that you'll just be a colleague with or network with or a friend with that you see at these conferences, or if it's someone you'll actually work with in some capacity one day. So it is a big risk to your point. Anxiety is probably my biggest con to owning a business. Yeah.
It's like every day, right? You're like,
Right?
what is
Every
going
day.
on here?
Yeah. I mean, you've got, and managing the ebbs and flows is also difficult because some months you're on fire and you're like, I've got the whole world in my hand. And then there's
Sure.
some months you're just like, what happened? Who turned the faucet off? What happened? And you've got to get creative and you got to, figure out, okay, what happened? Look at trends. You have to evaluate, analyze, and then you got to get on there and make it happen. At the end of the
Well,
day,
especially now, and now with like some of the title vehicles, I mean, OTR. I mean, when was the last time? Well, I guess I should circle back a little bit. If you got in here in 2012, you haven't seen, like, I got in equipment finance in 2005. So I was there for the original
08.
08 and 09 when the trucking was like bottom of the barrel. So this is kind of your first time seeing that, but vocational's different. So it's good that you diversified and stuff like that. But I can imagine the anxiety over that too, where you're like, what is this?
I have to reinvent my business. It's just like, but all you can do is you got to fake it till you make it and just keep going and keep trying and not give up and being persistent and being resilient. And I've got people that count on me. I've got a family. I've got an employee right now that, I mean, I can't let her down. She relies on me. So I'm like, I've got so much that's on my shoulders, not to mention my bills, the business, everything else, and my dreams of where I see this business going, that I'm afraid to fail. That being said, I think it was Henry Ford that said, the biggest failures turns into the biggest success. I don't know his exact words on what he said, but something to that nature, where sometimes
Sure.
the difficult times per se really can turn someone into the best of who they can be, because it forces you outside of your comfort zone, and it forces you to really be innovative, and and then it leads to other things. So that's where I'm at right now in my business. And
Sure.
I've got some exciting things that I've been working on for the past year, because I saw this coming with trucking, and I'm not blind to it by any means. So that's why I've been diversifying and working on things behind the scenes here that a lot of people don't know about, to try to take my business to the next step, another level. I'm very excited about where it's going and what's going to be in the future. But it's managing right now it's been challenging. And then we've got an election year. It's always a challenging year. Anytime there's an election, people just in general get nervous, just because they
Sure.
don't know the future of the country. And that's been consistent since I've been in financing. Election years are always a challenging year. So on top of what we're going through in the past 4 years has just been not typical. And then now we run into an election year. So I'm hoping 2025 will be a little easier, gives a little break. And then everything, all the fruit of my hard work and labor will also start to pan out. But we're doing well. We're doing very well, and obviously been in business for 9 years, so that says something that I'm
Sure.
still.
No. I mean, that's I mean, there's so many good points. I love your entrepreneur spirit. It's refreshing, Katie. Because like you said, I mean, when it's your back's against the wall, that's where you truly, okay, what are you made of? And who's gonna do that for me?
No one.
No one's gonna do anything for you, right? It's on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's, people don't understand the pressure that kind of comes with that. And then what I find interesting, not to make this about me, but it's once you experience success, okay, and what's next? Because I'm never satisfied, right? It's like, okay, yeah, we figured that out. What's next? What's next?
Yes. Yeah, I've got a definite 5-year, 10-year plan on this, on where I'm taking this business, and it's been pretty steady to the course. When, when I started the business, I had this vision of where I wanted to take it from the very beginning. And it's moving along just very nicely. So I'm pleased with that, but it's been definitely stressful. So the pros of it are that, I get to make my own decisions. So I enjoy being able to, if I see something's wrong, I don't have to have a bunch of red tape to go through 10 different people to approve something that, and I'm in the front line. To me, doesn't make sense. I can make a change immediately, right? I
Yep.
also enjoy managing people because I treat my employees like I want to be treated. And like, I always wanted to be treated when I was working for someone else, in that I value their feedback. I'm very easygoing when it comes to my employees because I want them to be happy first and foremost.
Sure.
If you're not happy, they're not going to stay. And I
Sure.
want them to be happy and feel like family, because I've been treated like that at several organizations that I've worked for. And that was when I was the most successful, is when my opinion mattered. So I think that's what I enjoy the most about being an entrepreneur and building a business, is just that I can treat people the way I want to treat them, and create a nice positive environment, my own self. And also that if I think something's wrong, I can fix it on the spot, or work towards it. I'm also in control when it is a difficult time. I am in control of what I do. So if I want to add things to my repertoire, I can, and otherwise, I don't have to wait on someone to tell me it's okay. I can just start immediately. So that's one of the things that I've
That's
learned.
that's phenomenal. Yeah, it's like experimenting. I hate to use the words, like there's all these buzzwords where it's like fail fast or fail forward or all this stuff, and it's like I don't want to fail at all. We can't afford to fail at anything, but we can
Right.
experiment in X, Y, and Z just to see where that takes you, and then if you like the way it goes, then okay, let's try this
Keep
and
doing this.
dabble and see if it's worth exploring further.
Right.
And I think that's one of the more, I guess I hate to use the word over again, refreshing things about being that person. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's try it. Let's try it. You
Let's
know
see
what?
what
And
happens.
if it's not working out, let's untry it.
Change direction.
Let's
Exactly.
go this way. Go that
Exactly.
way. Oh, it's fantastic. I do want to talk a little bit about, because you and I met. It's amazing. I know our paths have crossed throughout the years, but I think Sarah Kelly formally introduced us a few months ago at the AACFB charity concert.
Right.
So I want to talk about just this industry that you and I are fortunate enough to work in, and particularly the AACFB, and kind of what that trade association has meant to your career, Katie.
Sure. I mean, the AACFB is near and dear to my heart. I am on the board now for that. The reason that it's near and dear to my heart is because when I had to find lenders, or had to find deals, or had to figure out how to build a business, it was the AACFB that really was the catalyst for all of it. I'll be honest. I am involved in a lot of different associations. I find value in them, all of them. But the AACFB, they have a lot to offer. So when I say that, they, first of all, they have a board, a forum that you can go on, and you can say, I've got this deal, I'm trying to find this situation out, this problem, I'm looking for E&O insurance, whatever it is you need for your business. Your peers are right there. It's like a internal Facebook for leasing and lending, which I think is super
Sure.
neat. And I met a lot of people that way. And I found a lot of my lenders that way. And I found out some of the solutions to some of my problems that way, or where to place the deal when I can't, like a sports bar, like, what am I going to do with a sports bar? Things like that come up. And I've got
Drink there. Sorry,
exactly
I'm
right.
sorry. All right, sorry.
Very cool. So that that has been where it started. They also have a nice library where they've got a lot of forms and documents that you can use. So if you don't have an attorney yourself and you're just starting out, you're like, whoa, all this I have to manage. They've got all this stuff pre-written for you that you can take. And they, for the members, they allow the members to download and use these materials. And obviously you can edit them to your need. but that was super helpful to be able to read that. They've got a lot of videos, training videos that they put up there when you have the time to get up there and watch and learn and things like that. And so I started going to some of the shows, and I wanted to meet people in person, and that's been invaluable. They have become like family to me. NEFA, I'm also a member of NEFA as well. And NEFA is also a very valuable association to be a part of. So I proudly support both of them. And I also am involved in the UTA, the Used Truck Association. I've been a supporter of them for 9 years consistently. Big fan there. Meet a lot of my vendors there. And then also the NVLA. I'm also a supporter of them as well, and looking to work with them a lot more in the future. Had a meeting about that actually 2 days ago. So there's those associations allow you to build relationships with your lenders. So when you're calling, you're not just some random off the street. They know you, they trust you, and you just develop relationships and friendships that you'll probably have forever. And no matter, sometimes people change companies. This is an incestuous industry, right? So you meet someone here at XYZ company, and then they're there, and a year or two later. It's funny how it works. But I really enjoy going to those shows and all the events that these associations put on, because it allows you to meet good people that you end up staying with for a long, long time.
Sure, and those friendships will keep you coming back for more.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's great. It's like a playground, for example, for entrepreneurs and adults.
Great analogy. Just we'll leave that one there. And also kudos to you for being a female president of an organization. I interviewed Amy Wagner about, I want to say, 6 weeks ago, since she was telling me on her start and everything. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts. I'm sure to you, it's like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do this. But it is, good to see, women taking leadership roles in equipment finance, especially when you started this as a single mom, what you've been through. You just kind of want to talk about some of those trials and tribulations, Katie?
Sure. Well, when I started it, I've always been a tomboy, so that's I guess I've had a little bit more gumption with me, being a tomboy, climbing trees growing up, and getting dirty. So that was something that was innate to me in the first place from the time I was little. To go out there, get dirty, get it done. That was my personality. And then when I decided to go on my own, again, I told you I had panic attacks for about 6 months. Then I'm like, okay, I didn't even realize, wow, I'm a woman and I'm doing this. I can't believe this. And then I was thinking, what advantages do I have? And I looked in to see if I could get some sort of women-owned something, like funding to help, or a mentor or something. And you mentioned women in leasing. I'm not involved with them. If you could make an introduction, I would love that, because I don't have a ton of women that I, work with in a large entity. I'm part of Women in Trucking, so I've done that a little bit, but not really in the leasing industry. So that would be helpful. But I didn't really find, at least I haven't found yet, anything that's helped me out as a woman. But I get these phone calls from my clients all the time, and it's a man, and he's calling and he's like, I'm a woman-owned business. And I was like, okay. And I said, and this is your business? And he said, yes.
Hey, you can't ask certain questions these days on that.
Well, I just asked it to his business.
Hey, you know what? I'm just messing with you. We won't go there.
I have just asking him his business. And then the gentleman will typically say yes, and I'm like, okay, well, I need the articles of an organization, and I'll look at it, and I'll see a Cecilia on it, or a Jane, and there's no one else's name but Cecilia and Jane. I'm like, the person I'm on the phone with is not Cecilia, and they're not Jane. So I'm like, well, who is Cecilia or who is Jane? Oh, that's my wife. I'm like, well, then I need her credit application. I need her bank statements. I need her driver's license. This is her business. Not really. I just put her name on it because I want the women, the credit for the women. I'm like, well, when you
That's
find out what credit women get, will you please let me know? Because it's almost insulting to me as a woman
yeah.
to have someone sit there and say it's their wife's name they're using, but that person has no involvement in the operation at all. So that irritates me when I see that, because I think it is unfair. There's a lot more women-owned businesses out there that I think that are not really women-owned businesses. There are facades that someone's
Yeah.
spouse, they're on there. But so that irritates me. Other than that, I wish there was less of.
I can see that. I can see
I wish
that.
there
Oh,
was
it's
less.
51%. It's like, let's peek behind the curtain here. And a
Right.
lot of people don't really do that because they just want to check a box.
Yeah. And it's 100%.
I'm not a box checker. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like, you got to be authentic. And it's like, come on.
Right.
But
And this is 100% me doing this. And, I grew up in, I'm not going to age myself. I grew up in a time with dinosaurs, where women were still, not not very well represented in the sea level scene, right? But I remember my grandparents told me I could be president if I wanted to one day. So I never thought much of it and never let anything stop me. And
sure.
here I am.
There's so much we could unpack in that conversation, but to be continued at another time.
Sure, for sure. A sports bar.
Yeah. I asked everyone who comes on here to give me a little fun fact about themselves, Katie. So anything you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, I am fluent in French. A lot of people don't know that. Where it comes in handy for me is I work with a lot of customers that from Africa, because of the colonization. Half of Africa actually speaks French. They learn it in school, so that's native to them. So it's very good for business. Also from Haiti, they another situation where there was colonization and they speak French there. So I am able to use it at work and I enjoy that. I've been speaking French since I was 10 years old. I was put into a very intensive program at an inner city school. That the school that I went to, I was a minority at that school. And because the school was a poverty-stricken school in an inner city, they had access to funding, the state and national funding. So I was part of the International Baccalaureate program, and my education actually was being done out of Geneva, Switzerland, which is super cool. So my viewpoints are very different than a lot of my peers that I didn't go to school with, just because my education did come from Europe. So I travel, and that's my love of life. I've been to 42-ish countries, something like that. Everyone is completely different. And I'd say my top 5, my number 1 is probably, it toggles between Croatia. Dubrovnik is amazing. And Romania. We went to Romania on Halloween, Transylvania, where, Dracula's castle.
Oh, what a time to go there.
Right? I went there to Dracula's castle for Halloween. I went to Dublin, Ireland for St. Patrick's Day. So yeah. So I'm doing all that. I went to Christmas markets with my actual German family. They did not really know me, and I don't speak German. Good with languages. I'm learning Russian as well. So I speak a couple languages, but German's not one of them. So I was like that show. It was oh, help me with this, Jesse. It's the show where they're always doing these vacations, and they showed up with their German family, and they're like, oh, we're from the homeland, we're your family, and they showed the Clarks. What is that?
Oh yeah, vacation. Yeah, European vacation.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
So I enacted that in real life.
Okay.
I flew over there to Germany, took a train from Paris into Frankfurt, and they had to pick me up. Well, I didn't speak German and they didn't speak English, and they were in their 80s. So it was pretty funny. So I had to have, they actually drove 2.5 hours to pick me up, but I didn't know what they looked like. They didn't know what I looked like. So it didn't work. So I went to the German
Didn't work.
police. I went to the German police, and I'm literally almost in tears. And this lady named Iris, she spoke English, and she says, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm trying to find my German family and find my home people." And she said, "Okay, well, where are they?" I said, "I don't know." And I said, "I don't know what they look like. They don't know what I look like. They don't have a cell phone. This is a nightmare. My phone doesn't really work either," because this was in 2012. So they said, she goes, let me call them. Do you know their home phone?" I said, "I do have that." So I gave it to them. Well, they didn't answer. She left a message on the answering machine. She took me shopping in the Frankfurt airport, and we went shopping for German stuff. She thought it was pretty funny. We're still friends to this day, by the way, her and I. And my family eventually came home. They answered the phone. They got the message from the German police, and they said, "We have your, your family member here." I'm not sure how we're related, some distant cousin thing. But anyway, we have her here, and if you can come back and get her. So they drove 2.5 hours back to get me, and then took me to their home in the middle of nowhere in Germany. And it was a lot of Pictionary, a lot of pictures, and finger puppet type things, and because we couldn't communicate. So, but I did put together a book of family photos that my grandfather had that had some of their family members in it, but I'm not exactly sure who, because we couldn't really talk to each other. So I was just pointing, they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." So it was one of the funniest trips. I'm staying with these people in their home, and they had no idea who I was. And then I went back this fall, November, to the German Christmas markets and found them again. This time we had cell phones in hand, and we had Google Translate because things have gotten a little bit better. So we were
Sure.
able to have a great time when we went to a Hofbrauer house and had some beer and some schnitzel, and it was a good time. So
Beer, brat, schnitzel.
yeah. So yeah, that's a fun fact about me, I guess, is my love of travel, my love of culture, my love of languages. And obviously I have to have no fear to go live with some people that I don't know that don't speak my language. So.
No, he got stones, that's for sure.
Right? I've been told the size of China before.
Katie, my final question I have for you is, why should someone want to do business with Katie Baker and MC Squared?
Because first of all, I'm going to protect, depending on who you're talking to, right? As I have multiple audiences, I'm going to protect you and care for you as if you were my own family member. When I say that from a customer's perspective, I'm going to be a true consultant to that customer. Understand, first of all, the customer's coming to me for financing for some particular reason. I need to understand their business. What are their business needs? Tell me about their business. Why do they need whatever they're trying to finance? How is this going to help them? Understand their stories. A lot of them have very unique and wonderful, heartwarming stories. So I get to know
Sure.
them. And then when I work with my lenders, I usually work with, depending on the customer will dictate which lender that I work with. So I really don't work with like just the same 3 lenders like some brokers do. I work with the ones that make sense for the customer. And then when I'm working with my lenders, I'm also a true partner with my lenders, because I don't want to put my lender in a position where there's some sort of default or repo. Obviously that happens. We can't control that, life happens. But when that does happen, I also am one of those people that after the fact, after the transaction has been completed, I make sure to follow up. So when they're trying to reach out for a collection situation and no one answers the phone, I get an email or a phone call. "Katie, can you help?" Absolutely. I stop because I want that lender to trust me and understand that they're doing business with somebody that knows their customer, that knows the vendor, that knows where this stuff is coming from, not just something that's
Sure.
I'm not throwing stuff against the wall. So I want to be a true partner with them as well. So I would say those are my two big customers that, that I work with there, and my vendor referrals, also them. I want to make sure that they are able to help get their equipment sold. So if you don't have financing and someone's short on cash, they're not going to make that sale of whatever it is they're trying to, that piece of equipment they're trying to sell. And if they don't have operating capital, that's another issue as well. So we do work with that as well. We can help people get money when they need money for operations and for payroll or for whatever they want to use it for if they qualify. But without me helping this, nobody can really get anything done. So I'm kind of a connector, and I promise, and it is my value and my goal to be a finance company with a heart, because I care.
Sold.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, it's been a pleasure getting to know more about you. As I mentioned before, I hit record. I've been in the industry for 12 years, and I've only probably hung out with you a couple times. So we'll have to change that, because there's definitely a lot of synergies between our personalities. And
I want to
yeah,
tell one story if I'm able.
sure.
My father is my biggest hero in my life, and he has been what has really probably been the most influential part of my life. And I can't, and I say father, I've got two fathers, God, Father in heaven, and my father on earth. His name is Jim Baker. So I want to give thanks to them for where I am today, because without them, I would not be here. My earth father, Jim Baker, he started off when he graduated from college, and he didn't have a job. And my grandfather said, well, son, you graduated from school. You need to get a job or find a place to live. And my dad was walking down the street, and a gentleman was driving and stopped and asked for directions to my dad. My dad gave him directions, and the guy said, hey, would you like to sell insurance? And my dad goes, no, I'm not interested. And then he goes, are you sure? And he goes, look, I need a job, but I'm not that desperate. And the guy goes, wow, okay. So he said, here's my card in case you change your mind. My dad goes, I'm not going to, but they took the card, put it in his back pocket, and went back home. Well, soon thereafter, my grandfather asked my dad if he had a job yet. Well, he didn't. And he goes, well, your days are numbered. You're out of here. I told you to get a job. You didn't get a job. So guess what he did? He found that guy's insurance card. He called him up. He started selling insurance. And he enjoyed the relationships that he made with that. And because of the relationships that he was able to make in sales, he got recruited and headhunted to another plastics division. And he started off with a very small plastics company in Cincinnati, Ohio, that had hardly any large customers at all. And he was kind of thrown into this, not knowing what to do. And he decided to be creative. So he went and got a glamour shot picture of himself. And don't go there, but he's to this day embarrassed about that. And he got this glamour shot picture of himself, right? And put that picture in one of those plastic snow globes and sent it to the president of the Gap, like Old Navy, Banana Republic, Gap. So the president,
Sure.
with his business card, no, nothing. Just like my goat, like no real reason, just weird stuff. So I guess I get it honest, right? So the president of the Gap gets this snow globe with my dad's card. I was like, what is this? So he calls my dad. He goes, hello, Mr. Baker. Yes, I got this strange snow globe with a man's picture in it, and I'm not exactly sure what this is all about with your business card. He goes, oh, that's me. And the president of the Gap goes, may I ask why you felt compelled to send me this? He goes, because I wanted you to call me back, and it worked. So they flew my dad out to meet them. My dad landed the Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic. After that, he took it on and went and scored Nike, World, Disney World, like all of the major stores that you see in the malls, and did the shopping bank. They made him a part owner. They actually promoted him to senior vice president of sales. And when they did, they put a parking sign, in the ground, that he got his own parking spot now. So he pulled up. My dad's 6'7". And I didn't get his height. I'm only 5'5". But he pulls up, he sees the sign that says vice president. He pulls the sign out of the stake out of the ground, and he goes in. And they were like, "What are you doing? Why do you, we got you got promoted. We got you your parking spot." And he says, "I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm very appreciative, but I work just as hard as every person in that factory. And I don't deserve a parking spot more than anybody does." And he turned it in. And that is who I strive to be like, with my father.
It's definitely a great mentor to look up to, and a phenomenal story, Katie. So thank you for sharing that.
I'm lucky to still have him in my life for now. So I just definitely wanted to mention him, because that's truly been my inspiration. And obviously the Godfather above that I pray to daily.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure getting to know more about your story and career to date. And I look forward to seeing you. Unfortunately, I probably won't be till New Orleans, but we'll make sure we get some time down there. And thanks again for your time.
You too. Thank you so much, Jesse.
All right, Katie. Have a good day. Take care.
You.
Bye.